Okay, yeah, recording. Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to Wildwood Wednesday. This is our final Wildwood Wednesday, so we're pretty excited, and it's a great topic to be ending with this week. So we're Marie and I are both super excited. I'm just a quick intro. A lot of you have been on this call before, but we have a couple newbies. So I'm Robin McGillis, and Marie Markham and I are the co-owners of Wildwood Running, and we are both lifelong runners and are high school coaches here in Portland, Oregon. I coach at Central Catholic High School, and Marie Markham coaches at Lincoln High School. And we created Wildwood Running because we just thought we wanted to create a space where coaches could come together to talk about and learn about different tools, put tools in their toolkit to coach the whole female runner in a more effective way. There's so much great information out there, and we wanted to create a space where we brought all that together to provide to coaches. So we came up with having our Wildwood Clinic, which we are going to be having August 7th and 8th. We've been doing the mini Zooms as kind of a lead up to it. So this is our final one, but our clinic, which will also be Zoom based, August 7th and 8th, you can register for tickets now on our website at wildwoodrunning.com, and follow us on Instagram as well, because we're constantly sending out updates, information about speakers that we've added to the clinic, topic information. We had done at our last Wildwood Wednesday, we had announced that the first 10 folks to sign up, we'd be sending a hat, and we've surpassed that 10 by now by quite a bit. And so those 10 people we will be sending, the hats are being made as we speak, so we'll be sending those out very shortly. So as all of our Wildwood Wednesdays, these are meant to be kind of short, sweet, a good overview of a topic, to provide information, and again, kind of add to our toolkit. So with that, and we'll take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, just remember to put those in the chat, and our speakers will happily address those after their presentation. So Marie is going to go ahead and introduce our topic for today.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I am thrilled to introduce these three wonderful women from the Women's Running Coaches Collective. Robin and I have known them for varying amount of years, but have really connected with them closely in the last couple of years, and we feel very proud of our friendship with them. Together, they've coached thousands of kids and adults from varying levels, and have had successful running careers on their own. So as I introduce you, maybe you can do a little wave so people can find you on the screen. Charlotte Lettis Richardson, she began her running career at the age of 20. In her career, she held every New England title from the 880 to the 30K. That's quite a range, Charlotte. During her running career, she also fought for equal opportunity for women runners to participate in longer distances. In 1976, she qualified for the 1500 meters in the Olympic trials, and she ran for Nike in the Athlete Assistance Program, and later headed the Nike Women's Track and Field Department. Her coaching career began soon after her running career began, and she was still a competitor as she was a graduate student at the University of Massachusetts. Fast forward some years, and she has been coaching high school, she's been coaching youth runners, and she's been coaching at the club level as well for 45 years. She was the head coach of Lincoln High School, my alma mater. We didn't overlap when I was there, but in 2007, both the boys and the girls won the state track and field championships, which is pretty impressive. She also started and co-founded a women's running club, Team Athena, with Laura and Melissa as well, so they're all part of that. And then she was a co-founder with Sean Coster for the women's distance running, the Run Portland team, which Robin and I were both part of Team Athena and Run Portland at different times, and so our circles all kind of collapsed together. She's currently coaching at Bend High School, the middle distance coach and track and field and assistant coach for cross country. She's been recipients of awards. She's created a wonderful film called Run Like a Girl in 2005. And we were just reminiscing. I remember I was living in San Francisco in 2005, and she came down to the Nike town and showed off her film. And that was the first time that we actually met. And she's also started the WRCC with these other ladies. Melissa, can you give us a wave? Melissa was a collegiate runner at Texas Tech University, where she ran cross country and track. She has coached at all levels, from elementary to middle to high school, post collegiate, and she's been doing that since 1998. She has developed and coached cross country and track teams during that time. She's the founder and CEO of Runner to Runner, which she started in 1998, which maybe you could talk more about it, but it immerses young athletes into track and field to develop a love for the sport. Such an important thing for those young guys. She's also developed and coached district-wide programs in Portland and St. Louis. And she's with these other two, a founding member of Team Athena and also the Women's Running Coaches Collective. Laura, can you give us a wave? All right. Laura didn't start running until she was in college. I just found that out today. But she was the Florida state record holder in the 800 meters at 2:11. And then she was able to run post-collegiately for Nike as a professional runner. She placed 8th in the 1987 U.S. Women's Marathon Championships, so quite a range from 800 meters to marathon. She won the 92 Seattle Marathon and won the U.S. Masters 5,000 track championships. At age 43, she ran a half marathon in 1:15, which I think is, I'm 43, so I think that's so impressive. Her incredible talent as a runner just shows her success across all those ranges. She's been coaching high school, college, and elite levels, right? She was coaching at Lake Oswego in outside of Portland in Oregon. Then she moved to coach at Furman University along with her husband in 2010. And she's currently coaching the Greenville Track Club Elite, which they started in 2012. So hopefully I didn't butcher any of that, but we're so thrilled to have you guys here today. Robin and I are both part of the Women's Running Coaches Collective as members, and these three ladies are inspiring in their mission to create environment for women's coaches, to bring people together, to empower them. They're a pretty special group. So I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was amazing to hear all of these amazing women that I get to work with all the time, including both you and Robin. So both of you, thank you so much for inviting us today. I'd like to ask Melissa Hill, could you tell us a little bit about how the WRCC got started and what were the reasons you wanted to create this collective?
Sure. I had the good fortune to live in Oregon for close to 20 years and coached there, and moved out of Oregon to another state, was coaching high school, and I walked to my first meet and I looked around for some women coaches and I could count on one hand the amount of women that I saw. And I just thought, wow, I left my tribe back in Oregon. And so I thought, you know, I'm not the only person that's missing out on this. And I missed the encouragement and support of the women coaches that I had been surrounded by in Oregon. So I had worked with Charlotte before, loved Charlotte, of course. And so I had been talked to her for a couple of years about us starting this collective, and flew back to Oregon a couple years ago, and we had lunch, and she showed up with a legal pad full of ideas and questions. And that day, Women's Running Coaches Collective was born. And we just had this wonderful group of women that I think are totally committed to supporting and encouraging our current women coaches, as well as encouraging young women of any age to go into coaching. So we're ready to roll on that one. So Laura, you could probably also share. I'm going to try to do, guys, be patient with me. I'm going to do PowerPoint and talk some, so you may have to just give me a little grace here. Laura is going to share with us our mission statement.
Yes. So this is our mission statement. We exist to support, unite, inform, inspire, encourage, and empower women coaches at all levels of our sport. So Charlotte, going forward, could you explain a little bit about Title IX and what impact it had on girls and women in the sport, and what impact it had on women coaches? And then also, why do we have more male coaches today than women?
You bet. So as all of us know, in 1972, Congress enacted Title IX, and basically it said that there could be no discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded programs. And so that meant high schools, colleges, other federally funded programs. And so what we were doing as athletes suddenly became legitimate. Women's sports just exploded. Young girls and women were able to have teams at the high school and the college level. And it was just the most wonderful time, because what we had wanted to do as athletes now suddenly became a reality. And there was a pathway for all of us who wanted to continue to be runners, cross-country runners, track and field athletes, all of that. Unfortunately, it did the complete opposite for women coaches. Prior to 1972, 90% of the coaches coaching girls and women's teams were women. And in 1972, actually it sort of happened around 1975, those women, because the regulations didn't come into being until a little bit after that, those women who had been coaching were suddenly, there was a competition for the jobs for coaching, because there was now money in coaching. You could get a salary. Granted, in the high school level, it's not very much, but in the college level and the high school level, men began to see coaching girls and women as a possible career path. So sorry, that's my dogs. It became a career path, and suddenly women were competing for jobs at the high school and college level, and it kind of turned it around completely. I think at that point it was something like 25% of the people coaching girls and women's teams were women, and the rest were men. So yeah, it was kind of a sad thing, in a sense, that what happened for girls and women, did the opposite for women coaches. So Melissa, could you talk a little bit about what the current landscape today is for girls and women in sport, and what does the current landscape look like for women coaches, please?
Sure. So as Charlotte referenced, it's amazing. You can see these statistics up on the screen here. 1057% increase of girls and women in high school sports. That's fantastic. I was a recipient of the effective Title IX when I started running my senior year in high school. So super grateful for that. We didn't have cross country, but we had track and field, so it was great. So 614% increase of young women in college sports. That's fantastic. So that's trending in the right direction. However, we have some work to do in the management side of it. Close to 75% of all the head coaches at all levels of collegiate athletes are held by men on both men's and women's sports teams. So, 25% women, that's not quite enough. And at the D1 level, only 42% of female collegiate athletes are coached by women. So that we really want those numbers to reflect more of what's in our workplace. And I put some numbers here for the workplace. In the workforce, women make up nearly half of the labor force, but only a third of those are managers. So when we look at the ADs at the D1 level, there's 10% of those are women. So we're not even anywhere close. 90% of the ADs are guys. So we'd like to see that change as well. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. So Melissa is going to ask me a question, I think.
Yes. Charlotte, see, I'm not good at this. Why? Why do we need women coaches? Why us? What's important?
So I think the biggest reason we need more women coaches is that women are 50% of the population. Actually, they're only 49.6%, and men are in the world, and men are 50.4% of the population. I mean, that's the biggest reason. We are half of the world. We represent half of the world. The second reason is we are role models for young girls or young women and girls. And I think we're also role models for young men, for, for the teams that we work on. As we know, track and field and cross country is often co-ed. So we need to see at least 50% of the coaching roles filled by women. We need to mirror the reality of life, or start working towards that goal. Girls and young women often see males in a coaching role, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's really important that they begin to see women in at least half of those coaching roles, so that they see them as leaders. It's the same thing in the real world. I think we'll see later a video that talks about this, where there's only 25% of the women CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies. We know in religion, we know in politics, we're not on an equal footing as of yet. And so I think basically we need to see more women in positions of leadership, and specifically in sports. The next thing is that women bring diversity to a coaching staff. Cross country and track and field teams are often co-ed. And they need to mirror the world outside of them. Again, women are role models for both boys and girls. And then I also think we need diversity in terms of race. We need diversity in terms of gender. And I also think we need diversity in terms of age. So right now, I'd like all of you coaches, you can just do this mentally. It's just a little task. Think right now about your staff. Okay, if you're a head coach, think about your staff. If you're an assistant coach, think about the members of your coaching team. Do you have gender and racial equality on that staff? Where do you feel you could use more representation? And how do you plan to reach that goal? I know many times we're stuck in a situation at least in a high school and a college level where you maybe don't have the money, to hire women or to hire people of color. You need to really start to think about that as you move forward. So plan for it, and make that one of your goals. I think is super important. Last of all, I think women bring a different skill set to a team. It's a really big question. Do they bring another skill set? What I think is that each person brings a different set of skills to a team, not necessarily men versus women. I think it's more of a spectrum of skills and characteristics in each human being. So we need more diversity of coaches to coach the diversity that we have on our teams, for sure. I do bring, like wonderful Marie Davis up here, she brings girls talks to her team. She brings the ability to have that one-on-one understanding with another young woman. But it doesn't mean men can't do that also. And I think through the kinds of things that you do, the kind of presentations you do, Marie, that men can learn to do that also. And I guess finally, I just think we need different coaches for different athletes. I have a story about a young man. He's an older man now, our throws coach at Lincoln High School. His name is Lavelle Short. He's called Shorty, and he's about 6'6", and he played pro football, and an amazing man, an amazing human being. And he literally, kids gravitate to him. And often at our coaches meeting weekly, he would say to me, that young distance girl that, I think she needs to lift a little more weights, or, that young man in the pole vault, I feel like he's a little depressed, So Lavelle was that guy. He wasn't just the throws coach. He was a guy that kids could come to and could relate to. So I think it's really important to think about that. Diversity on your staff is so important. So Laura, what are some of the other things, reasons there should be an equal representation of women and men in coaching?
Well, one is if we have more women coaches, it encourages more girls and women to the possibility of becoming a coach. I don't know if everybody is familiar with Nicole Lavoie. She's a PhD and co-director of the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women at the University of Minnesota. And writing in Women in Sports Coaching, she writes, "Women coaches matter for a variety of reasons. Research shows that same-sex role models positively influence self-perceptions. They challenge stereotypes about gender and leadership and offer diverse perspectives, insight, and advice to their athletes. So the second one is athletes can identify with a coach, such as a Marie Davis Markham, an amazing athlete in herself, as role models and heroes. So, you know, are we talking to our athletes about the possibility of becoming a coach later on down the road? That's another thing that we need to think about to try and get more women into coaching. So Charlotte, how can we change the landscape of women in coaching, and how do we get more women involved?
Well, I think one of the very first things that needs to happen is we need to have more than 12% of women as athletic directors at the high school and the college level. That's a ridiculous number of people, of women in those kinds of roles. When you have more women, they're not going to be relying on this sort of old boys network, but searching out qualified women to come on and to be coaches. And they're also giving women equal opportunity. Although there's very little statistics at the high school level about the number of women athletic directors, I think it's only about a 15% average also. So I think we as coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches in track and field and cross country need to encourage our high schools and colleges to hire more women ADs. I think that's a very important part of it. Talk to your principal, talk to your head coach and head coaches to include more women in sports coaching and sports administration. People tend to hire people who look, think, and act like them. This needs to change. It really does. This also goes for race. Change the way ADs and head coaches think. Don't just hire the guy that you know. Look for people who are qualified and would bring diversity to your different teams, for sure. I think also head coaches need to make sure that their staff is diverse, more diversity in gender, race, and in age. I also think that head coaches need to make a more positive and encouraging environment for women coaches, to be more comfortable, to feel more safe. I don't know how many of you, if you are out there who are women coaches who have literally had the experience of being the only female in the room, and it can be very intimidating. And so I think it's really important as a head coach, male or female head coach, to think about the makeup of your staff. Make sure that you have diversity in your staff. Make sure that it mirrors the real world out there. I think another thing that you can do is, if you don't have money right now to hire more women to come on to your cross country or track and field team, think about hiring women as volunteers. And we'll talk about that a little later. I know Laura has some things to say about that. Basically, that gives them a pathway into coaching. And even if they don't stay with you, they will go on to coach someplace else. I've had amazing mentors as head coaches, actually both of them men, Tom Rothenberger at Jesuit High School in Portland, and the amazing Bob Williams, who is, I think, one of the best middle distance coaches in the United States. Both mentored me and had a huge impact on my coaching career. And then finally, there's this big question, and we can talk about this a little later, but in terms of pro-level athletes, there are so few women who are coaching them. I think we can name them. We've got one right here on the screen. Laura Caldwell coaches post-collegiate professional athletes. There's Amy Yoder-Bagley, Shalane Flanagan. But beyond that, there aren't a lot of women coaching professional athletes. And, you know, I think that can change. It definitely can change if we get more women at the high school, college, and then finally professional level. So Laura, what else can we do to promote and support getting more women in coaching?
Well, you touched on one about the mentors, and I want to say, when I got back into coaching in 2006, I think, I was at LO High School, Lake Oswego in Oregon, and I had two exceptional men that were coaches there, Eric Leiter, the head coach, and Bob Williams, my equal in cross country and track as an assistant. And they both sort of took me under their wing and sort of guided me and sort of gave me the confidence that I needed to move forward as a coach. And I'll never forget that, because that really got me going again, because I had coached years ago and I sort of was feeling like, you know, I don't know if I'm worthy to do this again. The other thing is we do need to get more women as presenters at clinics. Oftentimes you'll go to a clinic and the people that are presenting are very well qualified, but it's all men. And I think if you can have a few women clinic presenters, you can get a more interest in getting more women to be coaching, because they see these people succeeding and giving their expertise. So those are the two other things that we can do. Melissa, what are some of the takeaways?
Okay, you guys have made some great points today, and I just kind of want to wrap it up that, like, why we began is to support and give resources to women coaches and encourage women on their way as they learn to be a coach and in their journey. We want to see an increase in those women ADs up from 10%. I think everyone's in agreement on that. So we are more women coaches and young women in college coaching as role models is very key for our young women athletes as they grow and hopefully become coaches themselves and give back to the sport. We kind of touched on that before. Most of the time runners want to give back because it's obviously the best sport, and we want to give back to it. Once you're maybe through your running career, you want to come back and give to the younger generation in coaching. Sorry, I've got a cold. Wow. And also we want to make sure that the staff is diverse for our head coaches that are on the call today to take a hard look at your staff and encourage. If you don't have the budget like Charlotte touched on, I started out as a volunteer and I loved it. I mean, I walked away after that first day thinking I want to do this, you know, it was so fun. So if you don't have a budget, a lot of times volunteers will be a great way to get a woman involved. Also at coaching clinics, you know, besides having like a psychologist or nutritionist, we want to see more women specialists like in hurdles, throws, and jumps present at those clinics. So yeah, and mentorship is another thing we've talked about as well. Is I think everybody on this call can provide mentorship and new coaches. It just takes one little helping hand to help someone along the way, and I think that's important. We've touched on that. Bob Williams has also made a big impact in my life, and I wouldn't be a coach without him today. So I just it just takes that one person to reach out to another one to lend a helping hand, and I think it's so easy, and sometimes we just underplay our role in that. But if you can just extend to one coach this week, maybe pick one out and extend a hand and help them along their path. I think that would be very wonderful. So we have our next slide that can just wrap up what we've tried to say perfectly. Muffet McGraw, that was a coach at Notre Dame, has some wonderful things to say. Hopefully I can share that with you guys here. Charlotte, do you want anything you want to say before I do this?
No. She's a basketball coach, and I think this is right after they lost in the Final Four, but she is such a passionate person, and everything she says is to the point of why not women? Why not women in leadership roles? Not just in coaching, in every part of our lives.
All right, hope this works.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
Muffet, I know you made some comments about hiring practices and what you do in the future. How important, as your career has gone on and we lost past Summit, how seriously do you take being that voice?
Did you know that the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced in 1967 and it still hasn't passed? We need 38 states to agree that discrimination on the basis of sex is unconstitutional. We've had a record number of women running for office and winning, and still we have 23% of the House and 25% of the Senate. I'm getting tired of the novelty of the first female governor of this state, the first female African-American mayor of this city. When is it going to become the norm instead of the exception? How are these young women looking up and seeing someone that looks like them, preparing them for the future? We don't have enough female role models. We don't have enough visible women leaders. We don't have enough women in power. Girls are socialized to know when they come out, gender roles are already set. Men run the world. Men have the power. Men make the decisions. It's always the men that is the stronger one. And when these girls are coming out, who are they looking up to tell them that that's not the way it has to be? And where better to do that than in sports? All these millions of girls that play sports across the country, they could come out every day, and we're teaching them great things about life skills. But wouldn't it be great if we could teach them to watch how women lead? This is a path for you to take to get to the point where in this country, we have 50% of women in power. We have right now, less than 5% of women are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So yes, when you look at men's basketball and 99% of the jobs go to men, why shouldn't 100 or 99% of the jobs in women's basketball go to women? Maybe it's because we only have 10% women athletic directors in Division I. People hire people who look like them, and that's the problem.
As a follow-up, were you not surprised that she...
So absolutely amazing and impassioned, and it makes me almost feel like crying, because in a sense, female coaches are sort of the last bastion in the sports world in terms of, you know, equality. And I truly would love to see more women out there. Women are 50%, as I said, of the population. So my ask of all of you today would be to think about your staff, think about the diversity of your staff, and just kind of do that whole mental process as you're looking forward to a season. You know, do I have a coach for every athlete? So thank you so much. We love being here. Robin and Marie, this is really an amazing program that you've put together, and we absolutely love you. So thank you. Melissa?
Well, thank you. You guys are amazing. I have to move inside. It just started raining on me.
Oh, no.
So thank you so much, you guys. I think that I can speak for Robin and myself, and that all the work you've done over so many years, and the things you've been through, and the hurdles you've jumped have made a difference for so many of us. And we appreciate this organization you're creating along the way. So we'd like to move to our Q&A session. And I know there's been a couple of people who have commented. Alana said, good tip. When you were talking about volunteer coaches, she says, I'm biased though. I'm heading into my first season as a volunteer coach this fall. Thanks again for hosting this. And I can speak to the same thing. I'm a teacher, and I was working part-time, and I could only offer a couple of days a week. And so I said, can I come volunteer? And, you know, Eric Detman said, absolutely. And now I'm there every day. So it feels, sometimes you have to start with a little jump. So that feels good. Robin said, Robin has a question, and I know we have a couple from Instagram as well. So the rest of you, if you have any questions for this crew, feel free to just add those to the chat, and we'll kind of get through them. But Robin said, what piece of advice would you give to a new female coach who wants to get started in coaching, but can only help out, you know, 2 to 3 or a couple days a week? What would your advice be?
Melissa?
Go ahead, Charlotte. I mean, I can chime in after you. That's fine.
No, go for it.
I think it's great. I mean, 2 to 3 days a week is fine. You just have to work with your, whatever, you know, where you're working, like your distance coach or whatever, work with your coach on maybe giving you a group of kids that you can work with, and finding something, you know, fun to do with that group, and just, you know, I don't know, just work with your coach to get started on a plan. I always like to make practice as fun as possible. Like, I'm all about the fun, but hard work. Like we do music when we're having fartlek workouts and things like that. So it's like, maybe find your one thing that you can bring to practice that's super fun, but hard. And the kids are going to be really looking forward to that every week.
I have had some amazing volunteer coaches that have gone on to coach at different schools, which I always love. Marie, we wanted you for so long at Lincoln High School, and you were busy having children and teaching. But no, seriously, so many women have started, I know, with all three of us and have gone on. The biggest honor I always get is the coach or the athlete that invites me to their wedding. So I know I've had some impact with them. But again, you know, it's kind of like an apprenticeship. If you can volunteer even 2 or 3 days a week, and I know with a lot of my volunteers, I'll say, could you come on the hard days? Because that's often the day we need a stopwatch or we need somebody who can run with a group. And so, you know, seriously, coaches love it. They absolutely love, head coaches especially, have places that they can fit you in. So don't be shy about that at all. I can see a lot of heads shaking here. You know, I feel like, you know, we've all had that experience where we need a couple more people, especially if you have a big team. So,
Charlotte, I think for me too, as when I was coming in as a new coach, I think I was shy, and that I felt like if I could only help 2 to 3 days, that wouldn't be enough. And I felt like I didn't pursue it sooner because I didn't feel like I was going to be able to give as much as I wanted to give. So that held me back. And I wish I had realized sooner that I could have helped more earlier.
Well, as my old legs got to the point where I could no longer run with the team, I love having those younger athletes come in. The kids love them, you know, especially they're a little closer to their own age, for sure. So
we have another question that says, someone asked, it says, why do you think there's so few women coaching pros?
Well, I guess I can answer that one.
Yeah, that's good for you.
One thing is there's just not a lot of money in it. So if you're trying to start a program, it probably is going to cost you between $20,000 to $40,000 just to get the program started. So that means you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to be the fundraiser and trying to get people to donate and trying to find specific things that you need, like equipment or medical care or whatever. So there's a big, you know, problem that way. But I also think it's just maybe we just haven't seen that many women doing it. They're just in the last 5 to 6 years, I've seen a lot more women sort of trying to move into the pro ranks as coaches. And so like Shalane just retired and she's becoming a pro coach. So I think as you get more visibility, you'll get more women in those positions. And also going back to what we were talking about volunteering, I think also like with the kids that I coach, a lot of them want to go on to be coaches, but they always want to be head coaches. Like, I want to get a head coach job in a college program somewhere. And I just look at them and go, that's not going to happen. You know, you've never had any experience. Who's going to hire you? So, you know, I try to get them to start, like we were talking about, the volunteering at the high school level. Go volunteer for a high school team. Get your foot in the door. Learn from the people that you're around and then build on that, you know, then try to get on to the college ranks, then try to go on to pros if that's what you want to do. So I think that you know, we're sort of in the infancy there for women, but that's.
I also think for pro coaching, I think it's a bottom up kind of thing where the more women we have coaching at the middle school, high school, collegiate, post-collegiate, we're going to have more coaches that are going to become qualified. And I think it right now hasn't shook out to the top as of yet. It's a really interesting question because I think all of us have had that experience as women athletes that we've been coached by men. And that's been the tradition for a long, long time. And so I think when you get to that pro level, you might say, well, I'm going to go with a, you know, name any number of men coaches who have had successful collegiate careers or whatever. They're going to go with
that's a good point. I do think that I've seen some of that too, just when we're trying to recruit some women into our program.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard one for sure, but I think it's going to shake out. I think in probably the next 5 to 8 years, it's going to. I think it was I mentioned Amy Yoder Bagley, who heads up the entire Atlantic Track Club, right, Laura?
Yeah. All the youth, the masters and the elite team.
Right. And so I think it just takes, more women getting involved, and then more women being confident enough to apply for those kinds of jobs, for sure. For sure.
I had another question actually that came in for you guys about the WRCC. What are some of your immediate goals, some things that you guys are working on, or we, since I'm part of that, are working on, but you answer it.
Well, anybody else want to take that one?
You take it, Charlotte.
I talk too much. Actually, Maria and I just talked a little bit before this all started that we're trying to be a support system for women coaches, and as many women as we can help in terms of education, in terms of just basic support, camaraderie, all of that. And Marie's group, part of the Women's Running Coaches Collective group, is starting something called Chapters. And right now we have one in Santa Monica, and we will have one in Bend. I'm in Sisters, Oregon, so in Bend, Oregon, and we've gotten some interest of women who just want to get together once or twice a month and talk. I'll be very honest with you. If there are guys that want to get together and talk with us, I'm happy to do that. That is not exclusive of, we got to all work on this together. It's a joint project for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's many projects we're doing. We're trying to do more kind of signature presentations, things like this, to be involved in clinics so we can talk to this. I just did an interview on our womensrunningcoaches.org website on leadership in coaching. And that's something that I think as women, we need to learn more about. It was with two amazing Nike executives and Women's Running Coaches Collective members who are great runners. So Women's Running Coaches Collective, it should be up there shortly in the next week or so. But yeah, I just think there's lots of things. How about you, Melissa? And Melissa is constantly working on things.
I mean, the pandemic has been awful, but it's been great for our Women's Running Coaches Collective because we had a little bit of time to kind of work on all of the things that we've been wanting to work on for a couple of years now, because everyone's busy with their own things, right? So, but yeah, Charlotte, you touched on all the things that we would like to do as a resource and a support, and I just hope that we can keep it going. I think we have a great group, and just anybody who wants to be part of what we're doing, let us know.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody who wants to start a chapter, we'll send you information and how to go about doing that.
I'll put our email address at the bottom.
Right.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. And I think to add on to that, I think within those chapters, mentors will naturally evolve. And I think that's a big mission for that too, is that finding someone that you might be, navigate towards for this, or someone like a lot of us spoke about Bob Williams, right? But you might have someone else who can help you travel through these things as a female coach, as a woman coach. So
we keep thinking we're going to have we haven't got it up and running yet, but a directory we've talked about so that, women can go on, find somebody in their area. It's kind of like what Melissa talked about, moving to another state, not knowing anybody there and not having that support. I coached at Lincoln High School and was in the Metro League for a while in Portland. And I was the only female head coach there at the time. And there were times I came out of those meetings just wishing I had somebody else that I could have talked to about things. So,
yeah. Melissa, thank you for putting the email down there if people have questions or want to contact us.
Yep.
So our goal is to kind of keep this short and sweet. So we're around 45 minutes. So unless anyone has another question.
Can I just say one quick thing? Can I thank, we've talked about the three of us being the Women's Running Coaches Collective. It started with Melissa, then myself, and then I just wanted to name the rest of the people on the committee because probably most of you know some of them for sure. So Marie, obviously, is there. A woman named Tanya Fisher, who is just amazing, was an amazing runner, still is, coaches the Janes down in Santa Monica and also Santa Monica High School. We have Helene Hutchinson, who is a lifelong runner. I coach two of her children, works as a Nike executive, has been there for 25 years. We have Robin McGillis. She's driving in the car over here, who is just really doing an incredible job at Central Catholic High School in both track and cross country. We have Kathy Mills Parker, who I don't know if any of you know. She held the world's record at one point in 5K. Nikki Raffi, winner of the Portland Marathon, and has run 20 under 3-hour marathons, which is incredible. Christina Whitney, hurdle coach, who's just a go-getter. She calls all the rest of us, she's in her 30s, she calls all the rest of us badass women. And then Amy Yoder Begley is on our collective committee. Doesn't have a lot of time, but she does chime in quite often on things that we're doing. So it's an extraordinary group of women. And again, go to our website, and if you want to start a chapter, we'd love to have you do that. So your mic is off, Marie. Oh.
I just noticed that. I didn't get a chance to put these in while you guys were doing your presentation, but I'm putting in Runner to Runner, which Melissa started, and Greenville Track Club, and then I'll put in your Girls on the Run so people can check out your film and things. So we appreciate, or Run Like a Girl, sorry. Try to do too many things at once. Those of you who have been joining us each week, we appreciate you so much. This is going to be our last Wildwood Wednesday, because we really want to gear up for our clinic. So hopefully we'll be able to find you at our clinic. And if you need more information on that, you can always just head to our website, and we have lots of information. And obviously any questions, just send to Robin and I whenever you have a chance. So I found your thing, Charlotte, and I'll add that in. It's a wonderful film. I remember watching this in 2005. So hopefully you guys can check it out. And if you don't get a chance to get to that link, you can just head to YouTube and find it as well. So,
and if you want, I'll send you a free copy if you want it. We have a box.
We got a link on our website too, on the Women's Running Coaches Collective website. There's a link.
Yeah, great. And it's now a very famous hashtag. I'm sure it's because of you. Run Like a Girl.
Of course it is.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Bye. There's Detman. Is Eric still on there?
Oh.
Jenna Winger. Hi, Jenna. That's so funny. Hi, Jenna. Congratulations. How many little ones do you have now?
Oh, just the one.
Just the one. Oh my gosh. I saw you on Instagram, and beautiful. A boy, baby boy?
Yes. Yeah. Bo.
Good. Well, congratulations. So good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
See you later. So, well, I hope I didn't.
I'm going to stop the recording. That, hold on. That was so good, you guys. Wait, stop.